Hi everybody, I know a lot of your faces, but welcome to the South Kingstown Senior Center. We're very lucky today to have Navigant come and talk to us about the most updated things going on with scamming and identity theft and all of those things that tend to keep us up at night. It happens, we know it happens, and we need to stay on top of it. So they have created this panel of people who are experts in the field. Use this as your opportunity to get all the information you can, ask all the questions you can, and if you go home and you think of other things, come back, we'll get the questions back to these guys, and we'll get you your answers, okay? So now I'm going to turn it over to Mike, I think, right? Mike, you'll kind of go it. And they're going to run it just for housekeeping things. If the fire alarm should go off, you're going to go out one of these two doors, okay? If they should be blocked for some reason, right out the front door. Restrooms are to the right of the fire place, and that's about it. If you have any questions, we'll be in the office. Just come and get us, okay?
Right.
All right, welcome everybody.
All right, thank you very much, and that saves one thank you, because the senior center here has been phenomenal in accommodating us. Such great hospitality, and we really appreciate all the work that they did to help us get to this point. So thank you to the South Kingstown Senior Center for all of their work. I also want to thank some folks that we have here from Navigant Credit Union, Karen Balch, Stephanie Northup, Malia. They are our regional manager and branch managers in our South County market, have done a lot of work over the past couple months to drum up interest and talk to members about this event because it's important for us. Martha Correa is also here. She's our head of retail administration. Lisa Dandino, our senior executive vice president, chief administrative and strategy officer. And then Walt Lascos has been very helpful in building these out as well for us. Tim Draper, who's our panel moderator, and Randy Sacalato Carlos, our entire community engagement team. The reason why I thank all those people is because it's very core to our mission in Navigant, which is improving the financial well-being of our families, businesses, and the communities we serve. And when we think about well-being and that hierarchy of needs in order to achieve that well-being from a finance perspective, often we think about some of those tangible things, those basic needs of the roof over our head, a car to get to places. But oftentimes, especially in the education space, there's not enough of the discussions around security and safety, right? And that was great work by Tim and the team bringing together, a lot of experts, because safety and security is integral to financial well-being. You cannot have well-being without safety and security of your hard-earned money. And today is a deep dive into some of the things that are being done to take away from that safety and security and the things that we and partners are doing to prevent that and keep you safe and secure. So I will introduce our speakers today, but although this is a panel discussion, this is for you. So please, there will be a Q&A at the end. If you really have something at top of mind that you want to ask one of our panelists, just raise your hand and Tim will be happy to call on you so we can have that discussion. Again, most importantly, this is for you. So at any point, if you have questions or comments, please let us know and let's make this an engaging session for all. So I'll now get to the bios. First, we do have, I don't have a bio for him, but I can say he's been with Navigant well over 20 years, has held many different roles, and is now our Senior Vice President of Community Engagement and Philanthropy, working with financial education throughout the state, nonprofits, putting together programming like this, and it's just a great asset to our credit union. That's Tim Draper. And then we have Craig Young, Detective Supervisor for South Kingstown Police. So Detective Young has been with the South Kingstown Police Department for just under 27 years and Detective Commander since 2021. He's the most tenured in the South Kingstown Police Department, an instructor of EBOC at the Police Academy, and a graduate of the University of Rhode Island, and resides in South Kingstown. Thank you, Craig, for joining us.
Thank you.
We have Brian Eiler, Special Agent for the United States Secret Service. So Brian has been a Special Agent with the Secret Service for 2 years. He's currently assigned to the Providence Resident Office. He's a member of the New England Cyber Fraud Task Force under the Boston District and Protection Squad. Thank you, Brian, for joining us today. We have Michaela Driscoll from the Rhode Island Attorney General's Office. So Michaela is the Elder Justice Administrator for the Rhode Island Office of the Attorney General. She's worked for the office for 17 years, and in that time has worked as an investigator in the Consumer Protection Unit, a victim advocate in victim services, a lot of things here, specifically aside to elder abuse protection. Since 2016, been a member of the Elder Justice Team in her capacity as an investigator and Elder Justice Administrator. She received the Victim Advocate of the Year award in 2015 from MAD, and 2018, the St. Elizabeth Community Elder Justice Award, and in 2023, recognized again by St. Elizabeth Community for her dedication to serving Rhode Island's older adults. She holds a Bachelor of Science from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Thank you, Michaela, for joining us. Then we have Matt Netto joining us as well. He's the Associate State Director of Advocacy for AARP Rhode Island. In his role, Matt manages a team of advocacy volunteers that advocate for legislation that impacts older Rhode Islanders. He's been with AARP for a little over 3 years and a resident of Cumberland. Matt is also in this year's Upsilon 2 class for Leadership Rhode Island. I'm also a member of that class, and I can personally attest to the fierce advocacy that Matt provides to Rhode Island's elder community. So thanks for joining us, Matt. And finally, we have Steve Ormeron, who, or as we affectionately know him as SPO. Steve is our Senior Vice President of Security at Navigant Credit Union. He joined Navigant in 2006 after retiring as a major from the Pawtucket Police Department after a distinguished 23-year career. He was promoted to Senior Vice President Director of Security in 2022. At Navigant, he's responsible for physical security of credit union locations and for enhancing methods of mitigating fraud and fraud losses amongst all delivery channels and business lines. He resides in Rumford, has a bachelor's degree from Roger Williams University and a master's degree from Northeastern. So thank you, Steve. And finally, before I hand it over to Tim, I will say we also have Bruce Moreau from our Security and Fraud Department here as well. Just speaks to the, welcome Bruce. Again, just speaks to the level of commitment we have in member protection and security. It is integral to our work, and we're really excited to talk more about that. And Tim, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Michael. One point of interest here, we've talked about this, we build this as a senior safeguard seminar. It really isn't just seniors, it's actually everybody. I get 10 texts a week on my phone asking me for information that I have not solicited in any way, shape, or form. So we're hoping that the stuff we show you today, you'll actually take with you as you leave here and tell your friends, tell your family. If you have caregivers, tell your caregivers. Share the information, because the best way for us to prevent fraud and prevent exploitation is to have these seminars and then have you go out and evangelize the world about all the stuff that's going on. So let me give you a couple of quick facts. $3.4 billion in losses in 2023 for individuals aged 60 and older. The average victim of this type of fraud is $34,000 in average losses. There's 18,000 tech support scams out there right now. The numbers are staggering, and it's very important that we have these conversations with you all so that you're at least aware of some of the things that are going on, and hopefully it will help you gain the confidence that you need to say no, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The way today is going to go is we're going to show you a video which will set the tone for part of the conversation, and then we'll throw it out to the panel and ask them for their input on what they've seen and how it impacts you. And the one that we've selected here to start us off is one that I happen to think is probably the most powerful, so enjoy it.
I was the intended victim of a scam using my son's voice. And here's the story. I was on my way to work, my phone rang. It was my son. He was crying. He said, "Dad, I was in an accident. I hit another car being driven by a pregnant woman. My nose is broken. They arrested me. I'm in jail. They assigned a public defender to me. His name is Barry Goldstein. You need to call him. You have to get me out of here. Help me." I said, "Brett, I'll call him and I'll call you right back. He said, you can't. They took my phone. Help me, Dad. I'm a father, I'm a lawyer. My son's in trouble, a pregnant woman was hurt, he's in jail, I'm in action mode. Before I could do anything, my phone rings again. It's Barry Goldstein. I just met with your son. He's hurt, he has a broken nose, but he'll be okay. He hit a car being driven by a pregnant woman. She was taken to the hospital. They arrested your son because he failed the breathalyzer test at the accident scene. I said, wait, my son would never drink and drive. He said, Brett told him that, but he had an energy drink that morning, and that may have caused the failed test. He said, I should take some steps if I wanted to bail my son out. I said, of course I want to do that. He said, well, I'll give you the phone number for the courthouse, and here's your son's case number. You should call the courthouse and bail him out. I immediately called the courthouse. They answered correctly. I tell them why I'm calling. They said, what's your son's name? They asked for the case number. They said, yes, your son's here. Bail was set at $90,000. You need to post 10%, $9,000 to bail him out, but there's a problem. I said, what's the problem? The county bail bondsman was away on a family emergency, and he's not available. He said, but there is a solution. You can post what they call an attorney's bond. I said, I'm an attorney. He said, yes, but you'd haven't entered your appearance on behalf of your son. There's a Mr. Goldstein that did that. You should perhaps call him back and try to get him to post an attorney's bond. Hang up, I call Mr. Goldstein back. Mr. Goldstein, can you post the bond for my son? Yes. You need to wire me $9,000. He said, I'm a member of a credit union, so you need to take the cash to a certain kiosk, which will get the money to me. And I'm scheduled to leave for a conference in California. I'll be leaving to the airport in 2 hours, so you need to move quickly. I learned later that that kiosk was a Bitcoin kiosk that would convert the money to cryptocurrency. I hang up. All of these calls happened in 2 minutes. This is the first time I had a chance to think. I called my daughter-in-law and suggested that she call work and tell them that my son wasn't going to make it today because he was in an accident. A few minutes later, FaceTime call from my son. He's pointing to his nose. He goes, my nose is fine. I'm fine. You're being scammed. I sat there in my car. I was physically affected by that. It was shock and anger and relief.
So that's amazing. It was amazing to us when we first saw this. If that's a lawyer, right? There's an educated gentleman who's just practically fallen for this scam, and it happens all the time. But I'm going to throw it out to the panel for a second and ask Michaela a little bit about what she sees with this type of scam in the Attorney General's office. You get a lot of complaints about those things.
We do, and there's quite a few variations similar to this story. We see a lot of it with a grandparent scam as well. Very similar situation where you may receive a call to your grandchild, also that they've been arrested or in an accident. And one scam we've seen recently, very similar with this, is the jury duty scams, where you may receive a telephone call that you failed to report for jury duty. It actually happened to one of our prosecutors who called me in a panic and said, and I really meant for her, she was pregnant. So I said, it's your pregnancy brain, you're fine. That's why you almost fell for this. But she got the call and they said, this is I forget his name off the top of my head, it'll come to me. Detective, Sullivan, I think it was, from Providence Police. Can you please call me? And she thought to herself, well, that's funny. I don't have any cases with that detective, but called this telephone number back. And he said, yep, this is Detective Sullivan, Providence Police. I'm on loan right now to the FBI, which is kind of like a buzzword that the detectives use, that sometimes officers from different police departments may be working with federal law enforcement agencies. She said, okay, so you failed to report for federal jury duty. She's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah. He's like, you didn't sign that paperwork? You don't live at this address? And she's like, yeah, I do. And she said, could somebody else have signed the paperwork for you? And she was like, no, but maybe my husband, he works from home, he could have signed something. And he's like, all right, well, don't worry. He's like, you can fix this. You just need to go to the federal courthouse and pay a $500 fine. She said, okay, I can walk there right now, not a problem. I work in downtown Providence. He said, okay, he's like, but I'm gonna have you go to the machine, this machine when you get to deposit this $500, which was a cryptocurrency machine. And what struck her, finally, is, mind you, she's written Post-it notes. She showed me all of her desks. She had all these Post-it notes everywhere where she needed to go. And he said, don't get off the phone with me. And that's what triggered her to think, this isn't right. This has got to be a scam. But she almost fell for it, and she was so embarrassed because she's like, how could this be? I'm a prosecutor. This can't be real. How do I almost fall for this scam? But I think it goes to show, to your point, that it can happen to anyone, but it's so easy to fall down that trap of falling victim to these types of scams when they put this, emotion in you, when you think it's your grandchild, or this threat, something bad is going to happen to you if you don't act now. So unfortunately, we see this, really, frankly, really every day, these different types of scams and people who reach out to us.
It's interesting, Michaela, I'm going to ask Brian this next question because you mentioned the machine, he mentioned the machine, so the commonality here is this idea of cryptocurrency. Does everybody know what cryptocurrency is by any chance? Okay, so
I don't
Brian,
think any of us really
you
know.
know, buddy. You talk about cryptocurrency. Tell everybody what it is and what it's all about, why it's so dangerous.
So,
Right.
quite frankly, I'm still trying to understand cryptocurrency as is everyone else. The general idea of cryptocurrency is it's a decentralized digital money that doesn't require a bank or financial institution to verify or can conduct transactions such as Bitcoin or Ethereum. Decentralized meaning there's no central authority backing the money, such as the Federal Reserve to the US dollar. So the value of cryptocurrency is based on supply and demand. Cryptocurrency can be used for purchases or as an investment. Transactions are verified and reported on a blockchain, which is an unchanged ledger that tracks and records assets. So ideally, it's like a receipt that we can track. So the idea behind cryptocurrency is the value is based on supply and demand, and there's no authority backing it that could rise the inflation, such as the inflation of the US dollar. That's the idea behind cryptocurrency.
But what makes it a challenge is that it really can't be traced.
Exactly. Criminals love it. Cryptocurrency is anonymous. It's very easy to wash money, or a perfect example is this video, to use it as payment for extortion. Unlike banks that take 2 to 3 days to process your checks or transfers, cryptocurrency is immediate, and it's very hard to track, which is why we'll get into it, but time is always of the most importance when it comes to cryptocurrency scams.
Craig, do you see anything in South Kingstown here that would make you pause and give some warnings to folks?
We've had a few instances, and one just last week, where somebody, an elderly lady, was on the phone for quite a while, and she got scammed. She put $5,000 into a crypto machine, but the entire time she was on the phone, she went to Warwick, she went to Providence, tried 4 machines in each town, didn't work. She couldn't get the account to open. East Bridgewater, Mass, and then I think she ended up in Mansfield, where she was finally able to open an account in one of these machines. Bottom line is, if somebody's asking you to put money into a crypto machine, chances are it's a scam. None of us know how to do it. If somebody's asking you to do it, you're highly suspect, because it's not very common. And the only reason they would ask you to do that is so they can get your money, and it would be untraceable. There's really no reason to use a crypto machine at this point in time for anybody who calls you speak to.
I'd like to double that. There's no legitimate purpose for a crypto machine. Crypto ATMs charge 10 to 20% of a transaction fee, where you can do the same exact transfer into cryptocurrency online for a 1 to 3% fee. So they serve no legitimate purpose. All federal Secret Service hates crypto ATMs. If you're ever interested in investing into crypto, you can do it online, direct transfers for a 1 to 3% fee, as opposed to these 10 to 20% fees that these crypto ATMs charge.
And if you figure it out, get back to us, so.
Yeah.
You're hired.
If somebody asked you to put money in a crypto machine, did anybody know the first step? What would you say? You'd be like,
Where is one?
correct. And that questioning is the first thing that should pop in your head to go, this is odd. And it's that this is odd that we have to recall and be aware of. If something is odd, chances are something's off. You're right, your instincts are correct.
So they don't sound illegal.
Not yet. They're legal, but we haven't seen too much, I haven't seen too much legitimate purpose for them. But currently they're legal because these things are ahead of the laws.
Just
Go ahead, Matt.
a quick Google of crypto ATMs in the area. If you do that right now, it'll show you that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just on that main stretch coming off Route 1. I forget the name of the road. I'm from Cumberland. So. You take the road where McDonald's is and Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
There's 7 of them on that road alone.
And they're in, gas stations, laundromats, kind of in places. It looks like almost like the ATM machine you would kind of see, say, at like a restaurant or something like that. It's that type of machine that you could get money out of. And, there's, as you said, if you're involved in cryptocurrency, you're going to do it online. The people who really, dabble in it, if you will, they're doing everything on their computer. They're not going to those machines. And it's almost like I saw one in my town. I live in Situate at the local gas station. I'm like, why is there a crypto machine here in Situate? Right? It doesn't seem like it has its purpose, and its purpose is to
Seen them at the Cumberland Farms,
yeah.
like in the back corner.
Yep.
They don't want anybody to know it's there, but it's there if you needed it type deal. Hey, Steve, we talked a little bit about emotion. I think somebody in the panel mentioned emotion. Give us a sense of what kind of emotion somebody's going to feel when this type of scan hits, and why it's so difficult for us to go, this isn't right.
I'm glad you asked that question about emotion, Tim. The dollar amount that you mentioned is probably vastly unreported. So if you think $3.4 billion to folks 60 years in age is a lot of money, I wouldn't doubt if it's at least double that. Because people quite often that get caught in these situations are embarrassed to report it. They're embarrassed to report it to law enforcement, they're embarrassed to tell their families about it, and it goes unreported, and that's, I personally think it's a huge underreported crime. The bad guys know how to take advantage of your emotion. Any one of you with children or grandchildren, if something somebody called you and told you that something had happened to them, what's that first emotion? Oh my gosh, what can I do to make this better? And from there on, it's tunnel vision. You don't think of the wide picture, the big picture. Geez, what could be wrong with this? All you're thinking about is what I can do to fix this, and that's the bad guys and the bad girls know that, and that's what they take advantage of. And before you figure it out that something's going wrong, it's too late. Everybody on this panel said your money goes into a crypto ATM, the chances of recovering it are very, there is some software out there and the state police are dabbling in it now, and I'm sure Brian's team as well, but the recovery rate is minimal compared to the amount of crypto crime going on right now.
All right. Well, you know what? I got another bit. We got a few more videos. We can all come back to this because to me it's just unbelievably fascinating. Well, we're going to let's do the lottery scam next. That's always a fun one.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
When the fellow that was caught, he thought he was talking to his son.
Mm-hmm.
So they're using AI?
That's exactly what's happening nowadays.
To
They're
make the voice?
right. They're getting a snippet of a voice, and they're able to actually digitally create just statements from people that you think are your relatives, when in reality, they're just a computer. That fair?
Tim, can I jump on that for
Yeah.
a second?
Yeah.
Every time you post something personal about yourself on social media, Facebook, or anything like that, double the danger of putting a video on there with your voice or anybody in your family's voice. You're doing the bad guys a favor.
So they're taking from videos that you post?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've only seen one here in town, but it is coming. So yeah, you're gonna have to be more suspect and make a follow-up phone call. You get an unusual phone call.
Right, fire away, Mr. Laskos, and see what we got.
Congratulations. We are pleased to inform you that you are the lucky grand prize winner of $1.2 million. Contact our branch office in Vancouver, British Columbia immediately to speak with your claims agent, Rick Smith. By law, you are required to pay the taxes and processing fees. Enclosed is a check to assist you. Do not take any further action until you have spoken with Mr. Smith. This is Rita Johnson. I'm calling about my prize notice from Publishers Clearinghouse.
Congratulations. You are the grand prize winner of $1.2 million.
Are you serious?
Today is your lucky day. You did read about paying taxes and fees on your prize winnings.
Yes, I have the check right here that came with my letter.
It is very important that you follow my exact instructions.
Certainly. I'm so excited about this.
Rita, I'm sure you've heard about fake foreign lotteries, but I assure you that you have won the real Publishers Clearinghouse International Sweepstakes. All you need to do is go to your bank and deposit the check into your account. I promise that you will have no problems. Call me as soon as this is done.
This is Rita Johnson calling. I just want you to know that your check you sent me has been deposited.
Great! You are so close to receiving your prize. Now that the money has been deposited, I need you to wire transfer $8,000 to the address listed in your prize winning notification. Is there a Western Union near you? Go there right away. Don't be concerned if the customer service representative questions you. There are many scammers that ask people to transfer money in this way. But you know that this is not a scam because the check you deposited from us is legitimate. Your bank took it without any questions, right?
Yes.
Just tell them that you appreciate their concern. But this money is for your sister who lives in Canada. Remember, this all has to remain strictly confidential. A courier will deliver your prize to you after the taxes and insurance are paid by us with the money you are sending.
Hello?
Is this Rita Johnson?
Yes, it is.
This is Margaret Barnhart from Account Services at your bank.
Is everything all right?
Do you remember depositing a check for almost $10,000 and then withdrawing $8,000 about a week ago?
Yes. Is there a problem?
I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but the check did not clear. It was fraudulent.
It couldn't be. The letter said it was from Publishers Clearinghouse.
Unfortunately, Rita, you've been the victim of a scam. We are willing to work with you to help you solve this problem. However, you are responsible for the $8,000 that you withdrew.
We talk about emotion, talk about getting sucked up in that whole, boy, I just won the lottery, the Irish sweepstakes, this is fantastic. Probably not fantastic at all. And you would think that this is an old type of scam too, but it's rearing its ugly head again, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I can say I spoke to a gentleman about a couple weeks ago who he lived down in Newport, and he received a call that his name was entered in a sweepstake, in a Walmart sweepstakes, and all you need to do, same thing, was pay the taxes and the fees. And it started in February, where he was withdrawing money out of his account. February until May, he withdrew over $200,000 that he was mailing the money to particular addresses that he thought was for the taxes and the fees. And I was actually contacted by the bank who had reached out, because one of the things that is notable here in Rhode Island is that we are a mandatory reporting state for elder abuse. So if anyone suspects that anyone's a victim of any form of abuse, not just financial exploitation, it can be neglect or physical abuse, we are all required to report that to the Office of Healthy Aging. And a lot of the banks, I work very closely
I'm sorry,
with.
is that everybody, Michaela? Everybody in Rhode Island?
Every single one of us. Doesn't matter your profession. You have a concern about your neighbor who may have a child that's abusing them. Because we're kind of talking about these scam artists, but a lot of what we see in cases that my office prosecutes, the perpetrators are known to the victims. So it's caregivers, it's children, grandchildren who take advantage of their loved ones. And so the bank had reached out to me, and I cold called the gentleman and told him who I was and why I was calling and concerns, and he's like, yeah, I actually did. He was like, and I filed a release report yesterday, but sadly, with many of these scams, especially with crypto, and as I said, he was mailing the money, once you send that off, it's gone. We were able to get federal law enforcement involved to investigate the case further, but he's out all of that money right now, that $200,000. And some people I've spoken to, they lose their life savings to these scams. That it's really, really sad because it has that kind of, downward effect that, I've spoken to people who say, I fell victim to a scam and I no longer can pay my rent. I don't have money for food. That, it has such a large impact on folks when you fall victim to one of these scams.
Ms. Michaela, if I might, can you clarify what you mean by we need to report it? Does
Sure.
that mean that any one of us could get into trouble if we recognize someone
So there
doing
is
scam?
yes, there is a fine that is associated with failure to report the abuse. Whether that how that is handled, I couldn't necessarily say, but it's one of those things, if you suspect it, report it, because you don't have to know that it's happening, right? Like, you don't need to know for sure this is happening to somebody that I know. If you suspect something is going on, so the financial institutions, right? I've dealt with cases where all of a sudden money's flying out of someone's account. The bank reports it, and it actually was legitimate spending. The woman had just gone into a nursing home and they were taking out money and moving some money around because they were looking into some Medicaid and estate planning. It was all legitimate, but it's still very suspicious, right? So the bank reported it. So that's one of the things to know. You don't have to, know for sure, suspect it, report it.
Steve, once somebody gives us a check at the credit union, and it's a bad check, what are the chances of us getting any of that money back? From a check, not crypto. Crypto we know.
So the good thing about checks is a lot of financial institutions are, you may or may not know, how many people still use paper checks? You put them in the mail? Anybody want to address how many checks get stolen out of the mail?
There's an important problem with post office, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
7 arrested by the postal inspectors stealing right out of the Providence post office. The blue mailboxes on the side of the street, have you noticed that they have long necks on them now instead of the doors? Mm-hmm. That's because people who go around at night and fish mail out of the mailbox. Think about your check. Next time you write one and you go to put it in the mail, if somebody gets a hold of one of your checks, what do they know about you? Your bank information, that magnetic line at the bottom is the worst thing. They get that, the rest of it doesn't matter. And trust me when I tell you, somebody gets a hold of one of your checks, they're going to start writing checks against your account, just like that. So to answer Tim's question, the good thing is that there are, no pun intended, checks and balances that go with depositing checks. In most financial institutions these days, either by training of their front office staff or by electronic review of the checks, are able to identify a lot, but certainly not all, counterfeit checks. And Tim talked about emotions, and that video was a great one. It doesn't have to be limited to lottery scams. People get those checks with all kinds of stories every single day, and they think that they've hit the lottery. Every one of us has been told there's nothing for free out there, right? If it seems too good to be true, it is. Think about that when you start dealing with your own money. That if it looks too good to be true, do you think you won $6 million and you have to send somebody money to pay the taxes? It makes no sense, but people get caught up in the emotion of the second, I'm rich. So to answer, the short answer is we have a pretty good record of stopping those type checks because we know what to look for when somebody's presenting certain items. Is it 100% guaranteed we're going to catch it? No. If the funds go, good chance of not recovering them.
Craig,
Unfortunately.
Craig, what's that process look like if somebody thinks that they've been scammed using a check?
Using a check for any scam, first step is call the police department, call us, call the detective division. We'll walk you through it. If you're going to use a check, I use checks. I didn't raise my hand, but I still use checks for certain things.
I got you, don't worry.
Go into the post office. Take the extra step. Walk into the post office. Don't use the box outside until they're able to change all the ones that they have. And don't use the one in front of your house on the street with the little flag up. That flag is just a signal to the criminal saying, there's probably good stuff in there, I'm gonna go get it. So walk into the post office if you're gonna use checks. Now, it's not perfect, because like you said, they did have those arrests in Providence, but it's kind of the anomaly. Go into the post office with your checks, you'll be much safer. Once you call the police department, we'll send an officer out to get the initial complaint, and then the detective division will get it. We'll follow up as best we can. We'll call the credit unions, we'll call the banks. And then we'll get to a certain point where these things, the nexus of these things are out of Rhode Island many times. And then we'll transfer that report over to our federal partners with Homeland Security, Secret Service, FBI. And hopefully they can do something with that info and connect it to other parts, because it's not just here, it's all over the country. So be careful with those checks.
Hey, Matt, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to that point, it's also really important to make sure you're checking your bank accounts really as often as you can, because we actually had a case that we prosecuted where a family hired someone to come and be a caregiver for their loved one. So they were paying her weekly by check, not realizing that she was altering all of the checks. So if she got paid $400, she was altering the checks to have them written out that she was getting paid $1,400. They didn't find this out until their loved one passed away and the check to the funeral home bounced, and then realized all of the money that she had stolen for every week that she was being paid to be the caregiver. So they never checked the bank account. The daughter of the individual, she lived out of state, so she wasn't checking it as often as she should, but I think that's a really important point to make sure you're checking it, because if you do mail something and it happens to be stolen and altered, because that's what these criminals will do as well, it's important to check your bank accounts as often as you can.